The views and opinions expressed on this program are not necessarily those of this station, JVC Broadcasting Management, or its sponsors.
Good morning. Money in the Morning with Mitch Goldberg, and I'm your host, Mitch. If you didn't figure that out yet by now, right? So anyway, thanks so much for joining us on LI News Radio 103.9 FM. Special day today because my special guest is Sarina Trangle. She's a business reporter at Newsday, and you may have seen her articles, but she writes extensively about the nascent pot business on Long Island. And it's, is it going to be a big business, a little business? What's going on? How does it affect us? It could be controversial to a lot of you. And I figured, you know what? This would be a good topic to discuss right from the reporter herself who covers this more and better than anyone in our region. So, Sarina, welcome. Thank you for being here. How are you today?
Hi, I'm so happy to be here. Thank you.
You're very welcome. So, there was a lot of fanfare, it seemed, about the pot business. We're going to have pot shops. It's going to, it's going to help with the tax base. It's going to get illegal drugs off the street. There were a lot of things, and I'm speaking mostly from my own expectations, but I think they're pretty well matched to the general public. But it seems like it's just a case of really good intentions gone awry. What do you think?
So I would say it's a little early for us to assess, how things are going. The rollout has been slower than a lot of people hoped and than was initially planned. So it's just taking a while for things to shake out. And at this point, we've had legal recreational marijuana for, a little over 2 years since spring 2021. We still don't have any open dispensaries on Long Island, and there's about a dozen total throughout the state, some of which are just pop-ups or just temporary shops, and some of which do delivery. So it is just taking a really long time for regulators and officials to draft regulations and approve things and get businesses up and running.
Right. I've been reading about, when you read about the pot business on Long Island, New York State's trying to do it differently than other states. A lot of other states, well-funded, maybe venture capital-backed firms are opening up their, pot stores in other states, but we're doing it differently here. And we want to use something called social justice, right? So for people who've been affected by pot laws, unfairly maybe, right? Or that, what exactly does that mean?
Right. So initially, what the state has done is started with a conditional program, which is essentially a temporary license available to certain people. For people who are growing or processing cannabis, to get a conditional license, they need to have worked with hemp, which comes from the same plant as marijuana and is fairly similar, but doesn't have it doesn't make you high. And for the retailers seeking conditional licenses, people must have owned a business that turned a profit for at least 2 years and be considered justice involved, which means either they or somebody close to them, a parent, a spouse, a child, etc., had a marijuana-related offense on their record under the old laws. And in New York State, over the 3 decades before marijuana was legalized, officials arrested Black and Latino New Yorkers at significantly higher rates than white New Yorkers for using marijuana or having marijuana. And, so this was an attempt to sort of help set up smaller businesses and people directly impacted under the old laws before allowing, multi-state operators to start serving the recreational market. Currently, the medical marijuana companies in New York are
prohibited or barred.
Sorry, what?
They're barred from recreational? Is that it?
Yeah. Well, initially, when the state first put out their proposed rules, they were not going to allow the medical marijuana companies to start serving recreational consumers for 3 years. Now they've revamped their proposal. It's still a proposal, so we don't know for sure what will happen, but they're considering allowing the medical marijuana companies to start serving recreational customers in December. So this is controversial because potentially, if this plan does move forward, we could see the medical marijuana companies open first. They already have real estate. Presumably, it's easier for them.
Yeah, the shops are all over Long Island. You can't miss them. I mean, they're clean. I've been to one when my wife was suffering through chemotherapy, and so we both had to get a medical marijuana card, and we were able to buy it. But they were very knowledgeable. The store looked like an Apple store. Like when you walk into Apple at the mall, it looked exactly like an Apple store, except there were medical marijuana packaging. It's just packaging on display. Once you go to buy it, you have to go to a separate window. They give you the product. You have to go into a separate room to talk to the pharmacist. You don't talk to them face to face. It's like a whole clandestine thing, and it's cash only. It wasn't expensive, but it's cash only.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So that's what's sort of controversial is the idea was they were going to give a head start to smaller companies and people who were impacted by the laws. And now it's unclear if that's really going to shake out that way.
I could see medical marijuana companies having a huge advantage. Like you said, they have the real estate, they have the know-how, they have the money. They're already in place. And it seems like it takes a pretty good dollar amount to open up a medical marijuana shop. Do you have any idea? Like I've been reading your articles in Newsday, and it seems it's a pretty hefty price tag to get into the business.
Yeah, I have had a really hard time getting concrete estimates about how much investment somebody needs to get involved. But I will say that the state has a social equity fund that's set up to basically lease and then sublease to the social equity candidates dispensaries. And they're budgeting about up to $1.5 million per dispensary. So that will give you some idea of what people could be.
That's the number I saw. Okay, $1.5 million. But that's really the state. It's more like a state aid / subsidy per dispensary. And
it should be, I think, the bulk of what there may be some other additional costs involved, but I think that would be a fair estimate.
Okay, because when CBD, it's a few years ago, CBD popped up everywhere, and it's like everyone is selling CBD, and every shop that sells soda and beer now advertises CBD products. This is obviously something totally different, but I think there was an expectation that the pot business would grow a lot quicker. But how do communities feel about this? Is this something that we're welcoming here on Long Island? Do you see from your reporting, or is it something that you have to take it by a town case?
I'm not sure that I really have done the reporting to give that sort of analysis. I'm a business reporter, and it's more our town reporters that are,
right.
Getting direct feedback. I will say that in New York State, they drafted the legalization framework so that communities could choose to have retail dispensaries and consumption sites or choose not to. And on Long Island, just 4 towns have chosen to allow it. So I think it's safe to say that many communities, at least at this point, are not welcoming the industry.
Okay. And the delivery aspect is something that I thought was pretty interesting. I was reading about a company in Albany, and they deliver to Long Island. I thought that was pretty interesting, considering it's about a 3-hour drive each way.
Yes. Well, there's very few, if any. Well, now we're starting to see some licensed businesses serve Long Island, but before the Albany-based delivery service moved in, there was no licensed retail available. So it was sort of a marijuana desert. And I think the Albany-based company made a determination that it was financially feasible. They aren't serving, at least initially.
with Sarina Trangle, business reporter at Newsday. If you check out Sarina Trangle, Trangle, just punch her name into the search bar on Newsday.com or in the Newsday app, Trangle, and you'll see her articles. It's just one after the other. She has one out May 18th today, this morning. She had one last week, the 11th. She had one out the 3rd. You were just like a business reporting machine. You were pumping out a lot of articles. So it tells me this must be a pretty important topic on Long Island, right?
We've noticed that there's a lot of interest in it. So yes, we've decided it is a topic we really want to cover, and it seems to be of importance to people.
Why do you think it's so interesting to people? Is it new, novelty, or are there just a lot of pot smokers on Long Island, or a combination?
I think it's this is just a guess. I don't know for sure definitively, but I think it's because it's so new. We rarely see just brand new industries, or brand new legal industries, I guess I should say. And I think there's a lot of interest in it.
It is fascinating. By the way, when you're on my show, Money in the Morning, this is a judgment-free zone. So if marijuana is your thing, no worries, not judging. As long as you're a functioning adult in society, enjoy yourself, and if you need it, I'm very happy that you're getting something that helps you, okay? So this is a judgment-free zone. Sarina, how did you get into the reporting aspect of marijuana? Why you? Did you choose this? Did they choose you? What happened?
It was just a coincidence. I had a colleague leave Newsday who had been covering CBD, and because of that, was likely to cover marijuana once it became legal. She left, and they kind of divided up who got which parts of her beats, and I got cannabis. And I'm very happy that I did, because it is so new. It doesn't feel repetitive. Sometimes if you're, say, covering politics or business, there's a cycle, and after a few seasons, it can feel repetitive. And I will say it's very nice to just have something that every day feels new, exciting. You get to learn something new every day.
I love that. That's what I love about my job. I'm learning something new every single day. Like the technical issues that go into putting on a live radio show, right? Mm-hmm. So, this is a lot of fun. What ultimately does Long Island expect to get out of this? And with the consumers on Long Island, our citizenry, do we have the same goals as our elected officials of what we're going to get out of this? That's a political kind of question, so we can skip that. But okay. I think we expect to get money, we expect to get revenues, and we expect to get lower crime. There's things we want to get out of this.
Yes, I certainly can talk a little bit about financial expectations. Right. It's sort of hard to judge if the initial expectations are going to be borne out, because a lot of the analysis that I have seen and reported on was crafted before so many communities opted not to allow retail and consumption sites. So before that, the Long Island Association was estimating that 5 years into the recreational market, there would be about $375 million in sales annually in cannabis. And for a consumer, they pay about 13% taxes. Some of it goes to the locality that's hosting the store or the consumption lounge, and some of it goes to the state. And there's also taxes at the distributor level. But in any event, the localities would get some of the sales tax that a consumer pays. And there's only 4 towns allowing it. So I think the estimates that were put forward, may be a little bit overly optimistic at this point. At that point, they were thinking there's going to be more than 7,000 jobs in the industry on Long Island. Again, I think based on the opt-out rate, that's a much bigger question. Yeah,
so the overly optimistic could be putting it mildly. But do you know what towns have approved it?
Babylon, Brookhaven, Riverhead, and Southampton. And it's not as if you can just operate in any part of these towns. Some villages within these towns have opted out. They also have drafted zoning and other regulations that stipulate, how far or how close you can be to residential area. Well, yes, the state has rules about schools, houses of worship, parks, sensitive areas where there may be kids, etc. And then the towns also have zoning restrictions that in many cases are stricter.
All right. So is there, in your view, I guess we just have to see how the economics play out. But I think that was like the convincing factor is this is going to be, the financials are going to outweigh any problems it could cause. But I don't know if you know this, but from other states, how is it developing that are ahead of New York?
Economically, or what do you mean?
Economically.
It's really, I think it differs state by state. So it's pretty hard to compare. And New York is moving forward with regulations that are quite different from many other states.
Right, because we have the social justice component.
Yeah, and New York is not allowing most companies are not allowed to be fully vertically integrated. So for most companies and most investors, they can either be involved on the supply side with cultivation and processing, or they can be involved on the consumer side with retail and consumption lounges. And in other states, that's not so much the case. And in New York, the medical marijuana companies, which are the bigger companies that tend to have locations in other states and sometimes other countries.
And they have money to invest.
Yes, many are publicly traded. They will be allowed to be fully integrated. So, there's a lot of differences in New York that make it challenging to compare to other states. But I think other states, the big concern generally has been, according to what analysts and academics have told me, can we get the price of legal marijuana, low enough that people really migrate from the unauthorized market over?
Right, from illicit to legit.
Right. Obviously, if you are not licensed, you may not be paying taxes. You may not be paying for testing. There's many requirements that you don't have to abide by that makes your product cheaper, hypothetically.
Well, sure, I could see that. More testing, more regulatory hoops to jump through. Presumably, it'll make your product more expensive, but presumably, consumers should feel safer and feel that they're getting a quality product every time, as opposed to taking a risk that they could be ingesting something or inhaling something that might not be what it's supposed to be, or could even be dangerous.
Yes, that's certainly what regulators are hoping, and the argument that they're articulating. I think in other states there have sort of been high enough price differentials that there's concern that consumers aren't switching over at rates that people were really expecting.
I know. You wrote an article, it hit today. Queens retailer launches cannabis delivery on Long Island. Have they made their first delivery yet on Long Island?
Yes, they made their first deliveries on Long Island yesterday.
Okay, by the way, folks, listen, you could check out this article on Newsday.com or in the Newsday app. It's there today, okay? It is by Sarina Trangle, SARINA TRANGLE. Are you on social media? Can people follow you?
I am.
I'm not asking you if you're active on social media, but are you there?
I am there. Yes, I'm on Twitter. I'm not as active as I used to be, but this will give me a good something to look forward to when I log in.
Okay. Thank you very much for joining us, Sarina. Thank you so much. I really appreciate your time. This has been fascinating. I hope you'll come back. And everyone, have a good rest of your day. Stay well, stay safe. Money in the Morning with Mitch Goldberg on LI News Radio 103.9 FM. See you tomorrow.
Securities and investment advisory services are offered through Next Financial Group Incorporated, member FINRA SIPC. Client First Strategy is not an affiliate of Next Financial Group Incorporated. All the views expressed are those of Mitchell Goldberg and Client First Strategy and not those of Next Financial Group Incorporated. Views are general in nature and not intended to be investment advice. Any discussion of individual securities should not be construed as a recommendation or solicitation by our presenters. Next Financial Group Incorporated does not provide tax advice.